When I first started trying to lose fat, I thought I had it all figured out. I did what everyone told me to do, the endless cardio, eating clean, and following the latest diet trend I saw on Instagram. But all that did was leave me tired, hungry, fat, and frustrated, and I barely made any progress. And that's because the reality is, in today's world, most of the fat loss advice you hear online is overrated BS or completely wrong. And when you follow bad advice, fat loss can feel impossible. And that's when you'll start to say, maybe it's just my genetics, or maybe this stuff just doesn't work for me. But after years of trying and failing, I finally cut through the BS, figured out what worked and what didn't, and in the process lost 70 pounds of fat. So in today's video, I'm going to save you from years of frustration by exposing many pieces of fat loss advice that are complete BS that you've probably been told and maybe you're following right now. So you can stop doing those, focus on what does work, and see the results that you want much faster. So let's get straight into it. Okay, first of all, what better way than to start off with the fad diets, because these have been spreading like wildfire recently. And I'm talking about all of them, but the three most common at the moment are keto, carnivore, and vegan. You probably had one of these so-called gurus pop up on your Instagram recently telling you the best way to lose fat is to eat nothing but steak. Well, I can assure you that's wrong. Back when I was fat myself, I fell for every single one of these diets. The first one I tried was keto. And to be fair, I lost 5 pounds in 2 weeks. Granted though, most of that was water weight because when you cut carbs out, you lose water weight. But the problem with that diet was all I could think about was carbs, because suddenly I told myself you're never going to eat a carb again. And within 2 weeks, I couldn't take it anymore. I broke, I binge ate, and I put every single pound I lost straight back on. Diets like keto sound good on paper, but I'm telling you right now, if you tell yourself you're never going to eat a carb again, all you're going to think about all day long is carbs. And for 99% of people, that's not a sustainable way to diet. The biggest problem with these diets though is they convince you that there's only one right way to eat. And that's a problem because the second you slip up, you think that you failed, you go off of the diet, and that's how you end up in binge restrict cycles forever. What you need to understand is that fat loss doesn't come from never eating a carb or never touching sugar ever again. It comes from being in a calorie deficit consistently. And the only way you're ever going to be able to maintain that for a long enough period of time to see the results that you want is to eat a diet that you actually enjoy and can actually stick to. It comes to a shock when most people hear this for the first time, but you can eat the foods that you love every single day and still lose fat. In fact, the recipes you're seeing on the screen right now is exactly what I ate throughout my entire transformation and the kinds of meals that I eat every single day to this day. Speaking of which, if you want some of these recipes for yourself, as well as a workout plan that I still use to this day, click the second link in the description of this video and you can get my free fat loss Kickstarter blueprint. Again, that's free, so make sure you go and get that straight after this video. So look, if you try one of these diets for yourself and you've seen the results or you're thinking about trying one, stop yourself right now and focus on what actually works. The second piece of overrated fat loss advice is the idea that you have to be doing loads of intense cardio in order to burn fat. I'm talking about the kind of cardio that leaves you drenched in sweat as sprints or HIIT classes regularly. This stems from the myth that the more you sweat, the more fat you lose, and I used to believe that myself. There are so many problems with this though. For starters, hard cardio makes you absolutely starving, so most of the time what happens is you go home, consume way too many calories, partially because of the hunger, and partially because you feel like you deserve it, and you end up going over your deficit without even realizing. Secondly, those cardio machines in the gym massively overestimate the amount of calories you actually burn. If a Stairmaster is telling you 1,000 calories, it's way more likely to be around 500 or 600. And again, that causes you to go home and eat too many calories because you think you've burned a bunch of calories when you haven't. So that kind of cardio may feel like a quick fix, but it's actually a detriment to your progress. It's going to make the whole process a lot longer because it's going to make your hunger spike, your energy levels crash, and it's very hard to recover from. Now, don't get me wrong, obviously I'm not saying don't do cardio. Cardio is great for fat loss and for overall health, but the kind of cardio you should be doing most of the time is steady state cardio. I'm talking about walking and the incline treadmill. You can do both of these with ease every single day and it burns a lot more calories than you might think, but it doesn't leave you starving. As well as that, you aren't going to struggle to recover from it. When I personally made the switch from intense cardio to 10 to 12K steps a day, plus a couple of incline treadmill sessions a week, I no longer had that extreme hunger and those extreme cravings, so it was a lot easier to stay within my deficit. But not only that, it wasn't hard to recover from. So I could focus on lifting weights in the gym so that I built muscle and lost fat at the same time. And that's something a lot of guys don't think about either. Yes, you can lose fat by doing intense cardio, but if you don't focus on building muscle, you're going to end up with a skinny fat physique. So my advice to you is focus on building muscle in the gym and blend your cardio into your day through walking, and you will see much better results. The third piece of overrated fat loss advice, and what I deem to be the dumbest concept in the entire space, is cheat days. The whole idea behind this is that your diet should be so insufferable that you have to have a day at some point during the week that you eat everything you've restricted yourself from. Ask yourself this: do you think that kind of diet is sustainable if the only thing keeping you going is that some point during the week you'll get to binge eat whatever you feel like? That kind of shit is exactly what gives people the mindset that some foods are good and some foods are bad. And that kind of toxic rhetoric is what keeps people fat for their entire lives. I used to buy into that shit too. And I would eat clean for 6 days, and I would stick to my calorie deficit for 6 days, and then at the end of the week, I would have a cheat day. I would completely binge eat whatever I felt like. And not only was that destroying my relationship with food, but it turns out I wasn't even in a calorie deficit. Think about this. Let's say your maintenance calories is 2,500, and for 6 out of 7 days you eat 2,000 calories a day, putting you in a 3,000 calorie deficit for that week so far. But then Sunday, which is your cheat day, comes around and you go all out with pizza, a burger, snacks, a dessert or two, and maybe a couple of beers, and consume 6,000 calories. Well, not only have you just completely wiped out all the progress you made during the first 6 days of that week, but you would actually end up in a 500 calorie surplus for the bottom line of that week. Look, you should never need cheat days. What you need to do is build flexibility into your diet, and the best way to do that is by following the 80-20 diet, where 80% of your calorie intake every single day comes from single ingredient whole foods, and 20% of your daily calorie intake comes from whatever you feel like. The best diet is the one that you as an individual, yes, you watching this, can stick to for the rest of your life, and brings you to the results that you want, but more importantly, helps you maintain those results. So of course you shouldn't cut the foods out that you love. So forget cheat days and build a diet that works for you, and you will see 10 times more progress. The fourth overrated piece of fat loss advice is believing that the scale is the only metric that matters. I used to believe this too, and every single day that I woke up, if I stepped on that scale and it hadn't gone down, no matter what I did, whether I hit all of my steps that week, got all of my gym sessions in, stuck to my calorie deficit, I would be completely devastated and feel like I'm failing. The truth is, the scale is an amazing tool, but it doesn't tell you the whole story. In fact, your body weight can fluctuate by 2 to 5 pounds in a single day depending on water retention, carb intake, sodium intake, stress levels, and much more. So if you're relying solely on the number you can see on the scale day to day, you are letting normal fluctuations dictate your life. And that's why so many people end up quitting, because they step on the scale for a couple days in a row, it doesn't go down like they want it to, and suddenly they're telling themselves, shit, this stuff just doesn't work for me, and they throw in the towel. That's why it's so important to have multiple metrics of progress. Yes, weigh yourself every day, but look at the weekly average. The day-to-day fluctuations mean fuck all, but more importantly, take progress pictures every single week, because if you can see visual progress, even if the scale doesn't move, you have undeniable proof that you're making progress. As well as that, track how you feel day to day, because those kind of metrics are far more important. Have you got more energy? Do your clothes fit better? Are you getting and feeling stronger? Because that is what actually matters more than some arbitrary fucking number. So never let the scale control you. Use it as the tool that it is, but never obsess over it, because that can cause you to make bad decisions, quit too early, and rob you of the progress that you deserve. The fifth overrated piece of fat loss advice is the idea that if you eat at night, it automatically makes you fat. You've likely heard from someone at some point that if you eat after 7 p.m, that food and those calories automatically turn into fat instantly. Here is the reality though, your body doesn't have some internal clock that when it turns 8 p.m. it says, oh shit, we have food coming in, turn that straight into fat. The only thing that dictates fat loss and fat gain is calories in, calories out. With that being said, I know exactly where this stems from, and it's because most people tend to overeat at night. And I know this myself. I used to sit there every single night between the hours of 8 p.m. and 11 p.m, stick on Netflix, be so engrossed in what I was watching, and mindlessly snack, and before I knew it, I consumed over 1,000 calories. Now that's where restricted eating windows come in. And what that is where you set yourself a window, usually somewhere between 8 to 12 hours, where you're going to consume all of your calories for that day. So if you're someone that finds yourself overeating at night, your window could be 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. and that way it puts a mental barrier in the way, and you are way more likely to stick to something when you have actually set a rule yourself. And even if you slip up once per week, that's still 6 days out of 7 where you stopped yourself from consuming too many calories at night. But something I want to make clear for you is that if you're someone who enjoys eating later in the day, that's absolutely fine. Just because you have dinner at 9 p.m. is not going to make you fat. And for example, when I go out for late night dinners, what I tend to do is save 40 to 50% of my calories throughout the rest of that day so that I can sit there, eat what I like and enjoy myself. And guess what? I don't wake up fatter the next day. So stop listening to that crap. Too many calories is what makes people fat, not the time that they eat. And now you know what I didn't know at the start of my own fat loss journey. And if anything, that means you're going to make progress faster and more efficiently than I did. Just stop listening to the BS out there and focus on what actually works. If you want my help to make a transformation exactly like mine, click the first link in the description, book a call with me, and we'll have a quick 30-minute chat to see if you'd be the right fit for my coaching. Other than that, I hope this video helped. If it did, leave it a like, share it with a friend, preferably a fat one, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.